Hello, and thank you for joining us for the follow-up as we look back to Sunday's sermon and dive deeper into topics discussed. I am John Mulligan.
I'm Casey Clark.
And I'm Justin Cook.
This is an interesting podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We were all together, but we weren't all together like at all on Sunday.
Yeah.
So we're actually probably going to take a little bit different routes of not diving deeper into topics discussed on Sunday because we all had different topics that were discussed.
That's one way of
So
saying
we probably are diving deeper into topics discussed. We're just each of us
Probably.
diving deeper into different topics that were
Topics.
discussed at the church we were at.
Yeah.
Goodness. The
So-
word salad.
3 different diving boards, diving deeper.
Very Trinitarian of you, John.
Yes, amen. Yes and amen. Casey, you were talking earlier. You had a question that you wanted to ask us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not asking us our icebreaker.
Yeah. So I noticed a scar on someone earlier, and it made me-
Producer Lincoln, to be
Producer
exact.
Lincoln, yes, noticed a scar, and he told us that he was attacked by a bear, which ended up not being true, but he got me for a couple seconds,
Oh, and only you.
and only me. Everyone else was like, "That's not true." Said maybe. Didn't know if a polar bear got loose at the zoo. Anyway, so scars. Oftentimes, when you get it, there's a story that comes along with that, whether it's a bear or not. So let me start, John. Do you have a scar and a story that goes along with that, whether it's a gnarly scar or not?
I do. I used to really pride myself in scars. Like, no matter where they were, I wanted to keep them so that people would ask me about them.
Wow.
All that weird stuff. I have one though that I wish I didn't have, but at this point I'm glad I do, because if I didn't have it, that would mean I didn't have a finger.
Whoa.
So back in like 2016, I was working at a furniture restoration place, and my boss was out, so I was in charge, and I was on the big bandsaw. Do you know what a bandsaw is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so just a big wheel of a what's it called?
Saw.
Saw.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Anyway,
I do know what that is.
thank you.
Do
Yeah,
you?
I was asking you for me. Anyway, I was shaping a piece of wood on it, and I was pushing it, and it just had a little bit more off that I needed to get. And as I was turning the piece of wood, the board slipped out, and the pressure was still going. My hand just went straight into the saw.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, thankfully, I don't know how I still have my right pointer finger, but my scar, yeah, it's just right there.
Oh yeah, I can see.
I just was holding on to my hand, like, yep, it's gone. I'm like looking around for my finger, and then I just like look. Oh, it's still there. So I just calmly told the other employees, "Hello, I'm going to the hospital. Don't do anything with this machine." And so just went. Yeah, I got to get like multiple stitches. But yeah, works fine. And now I just have a great story with a great scar.
Yeah, and you're a musician and can
Yeah,
use it to play beautiful music. Wonderful.
If you're not watching the video that we don't have, I'm moving my finger freely
Yeah.
right now.
This is our non-video video podcast.
Yeah,
Justin.
That could have been really bad.
it could have been, but we're here. I'm telling the tale now.
Have you ever heard of someone cutting their finger off with a saw like that?
Oh yeah, like in the woodworking construction business, like most of the people that I worked with had missing finger parts or missing fingers altogether.
Mm.
Usually from a table saw, which like most people have,
Mm-hmm.
and they say that that's the most dangerous one.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, it's just because it's the kickback on it,
Yeah,
whatever.
it
Just
gets you.
take them right off.
Wow.
Which is nuts.
Justin, do you have any scars?
You want to know how I got these scars?
John and I totally taken aback by that.
I
Totally
saw
not
you
expecting.
messing with your phone. I
I
was like, what
know.
is he doing?
I want to know how I got these scars. Oh my goodness. I do want to know how you got.
Oh gosh. Okay.
You got to
Those
go back
scars.
and re-record that.
Nope, it's staying in.
It is.
Do you want to know how I got those scars, Casey?
If you have any scars,
I have several scars. I have 2 on my head that are often not seen by people.
Mm-hmm.
So one I got, I don't know how old I was, probably 3 or 4. And one of my favorite games to play during the winter was Indy 500. And so I would get up in my parents' bed and pretend to be driving an Indy car. and put pillows all around so you could wreck the car and like wreck into the pillows because
yeah.
sometimes you take the turns too fast.
Mm-hmm.
One time I took the turn too fast for even my pillows. And they had one of those heater vents on the floor, and I flipped myself off of the bed as a 3 or 4-year-old and landed on the open vent, and it sliced the top of my skull open.
Wow.
Ouch. I feel like I can feel that right now.
Yeah, just like imagine, like, I mean, Cannon.
Yeah.
Right? I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, it was like it was a realistic race car, and I had to beat the guy, and I was like, I just couldn't handle the curve that fast.
So, stitches?
I don't think I had stitches because I mean those vent little.
Yeah.
I don't know what the top of the vent is called. Just
Me neither.
whatever. Those things are not wide, right? So it's just like a laceration that you get some pressure on it and it stops.
Wow.
The other one did require stitch. No, it didn't. Sorry, my other one didn't require stitches. My parents had gone on a trip, and my brother and I were staying at home, and someone had come to watch us. My sister as well. And so we just been doing I'm probably 10 years old. He's 7. And we're just being boys, wrestling, whatever. And we're like, okay, we gotta chill out, go to bed. So we're done with our wrestling. And so we went to brush our teeth. I was next to the bathtub. He was on the other side. We're brushing our teeth. And he decides he wants one more like jab. So he shoves me while I'm brushing my teeth. I go sideways into the bathtub. So my knee hits the tub and I trip and fall backwards into the tub.
Oh, no.
And on the backside is the soap dish, and my head bashes the soap dish, and it's a gash in the back of my head. And my last memory before passing out is throwing the toothpaste at him. And I see
One last go.
I see the toothpaste going end over end, and then it just kind of fades into blackness in my memory. And my next memory, I was standing up, and I looked down in the tub. I'm like, how did all that blood get there?
Oh, my goodness.
And
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah, it was kind of nuts. So I've got 2 scars on my head that most people don't know about. Now, some do, 3 or 4 at least that are listening to this podcast. Yeah, so it's kind of nuts.
Yeah, that is. I'm glad you didn't have to get stitches though. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. We decided not to do it, and
You're fine. You're
well,
here.
I mean,
we think you're fine.
I consider myself fine. I mean, that's probably up for debate. Casey,
Yeah.
tell us about your scars.
So mine is also on my head. I was probably 7 or 8. Was playing hide and go seek tag in the back of the church and on the playground with a couple of older kids. And so as the guy who was doing the seeking and tagging came out, he was older, and so I knew if he found me, I needed to get a head start as quick as possible. And so I was hiding behind this big green generator. And as soon as he came out, I don't know how he saw me, but he came around, he saw me. So I went around and started backing up. And as soon as he started making his way towards me, I flipped my body around 180, and I must have closed my eyes because I just started darting after turning around, and I ran smack dab into those old metal, tall, like 10-foot tall, 9-foot tall monkey bars.
oh, yeah.
Big old
yeah.
hard thing. My face planted right into the left side of it.
How old
And
were you?
I was probably 7 or 8.
Oh, man.
And so, I mean, woke up on the ground, crying, had, busted my leg on the ladder that went up, but my head was bleeding like crazy. And so went to the doctor and, had to get, I think, 7 stitches. So it's in my forehead. If you ever look at me, and it's on the right side of my forehead, it looks like this little circle that is up there. So when I'm surprised, you can definitely see it. But, other than that, it's barely noticeable. But man, the longest term lasting effect from that was actually my leg hitting the ladder. I had to do PT for probably 6 to 9 months because the muscles were contracting and were tense, and they couldn't get loose. And so had to go to doctors, and they would work it out, and that was painful.
That's bad.
Painful. So
You want to know something that's just totally truthful coming from my mouth right now to you?
I do.
I've known you now for 3 years.
Yeah.
Never noticed the scar.
Mm-hmm.
now can't unsee it. I'm gonna look at you every time, and just be like, Scar.
You know what?
Hello.
Then I just may have to find another job. May.
Which you were at Trailview this weekend, weren't you?
There's a segue.
That was quite the segue.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Yeah, thanks. Justin, you were at the Fields Church.
I was.
Which, we as Parkside were a part of partnering and planting that church. Casey at Trailview candidating this weekend. We had a lot going on. Lincoln and I were holding down the fort here at Parkside with Harrison Beckman. Did an amazing job preaching. But I'd love to hear from you guys. Just share with us, those who are at Parkside, just some encouragements that you had being at a church that you planted or that we've helped plant, and one where we're hoping to see revitalization come at Trailview. Justin, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah.
some
And
encouragement.
I'd mentioned too, Pastor Steve is in India right now.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
He's in India and is training people to train the next generation in gospel
Mm-hmm.
ministry. So just a big weekend of
Huge.
ministry beyond our walls this past Sunday. No, the Fields up in Westfield planted with Plant Indy and other organizations, the Send Network, Southern Baptist Convention. Boy, we just praise God for the work that's being done there. I remember it was 3 years ago, almost to the day, that they were in their kind of early phase meetings as a core team. They came to Parkside. Pastor Jeff Strickland preached. There was maybe a dozen of them, which was great to have them. And then to be there this past Sunday with several hundred as opposed to a dozen, and just see the ways that God has blessed was really tremendous. And so it was the first time going to church in an elementary school in a long time for me.
Yeah.
It's a totally different vibe, but super sweet people. They were kindly welcomed us. I'd tell you, one of the things that stuck out the most was a 10 or 12-year-old kid who warmly greeted me and my wife and each of my kids. And so the greeters were great greeters. They crushed it. The warm welcome team did a wonderful job.
Good.
But when it was people that weren't serving in that capacity that were warmly greeting us, that made a pretty significant impact as well. And so that was, we loved being up there with them. God's doing a work in Westfield, bringing people together. Yeah. And I just enjoyed being there. They took communion differently than us and gave me a lot to think about. So we talked about that a little bit before we recorded, and possibly ways that we could practice the Lord's Supper in a richer way than even we presently do now. And so I'm glad to learn from others and find ways that we can grow and improve our church.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really cool to hear. I mean, when we sent them, we said Westfield was, I think, is still the fastest growing like town around in the central Indiana.
I think in the whole state.
In the whole state, well, yeah. And to see like a few go and plant that church, and now to see a couple hundred, you said, there on a Sunday morning like that. Not only is it cool to see church go, people come, but that just shows the faithfulness of the pastor with Pastor Jeff and the members there going out to their community, evangelizing and bringing them to this church.
Yeah, I mean, Carson Snyder had been a member here, and we sent Carson up there, and so I was very glad for Carson and now his wife Julia to be there. Ironically or interestingly, the church up at the Fields, they're preaching through the Gospel of Mark, and they are right now 4 verses ahead of us.
Ooh.
So they've taken a little break for Christmas, and we still have 2 more sermons in Mark before we take a break for Christmas, so we're going to get ahead of them here, and my guess is they'll probably finish on Easter just like we will as well, but we can be leading the way into Easter
There
Sunday.
you go. Yep.
Did you and Pastor Jeff collaborate on that?
And the scheduling of it,
Yeah.
we did not, but I've called him on more than at least one occasion. I think more than one. I've called him once, texted him many times, talking about different ways we intend to preach or trying to understand what the text is saying.
Yeah. So what did you end up preaching on?
Genesis 28, Jacob's encounter with the Lord, the ladder leading up to heaven, was one of my favorite passages in the whole study of Genesis we did about 3 years ago. And so I've often gone back to that and found strength from it. So I was glad to share with him.
That's great. Yeah.
Casey, tell us about Trailview.
Yeah. So it was kind of funny. I ended up coming here Sunday morning because I don't have a an office up there in Lebanon. So I ended
You
up
drove from Lebanon down to Brownsburg so you could drive back up
did.
to Lebanon.
I did. There were some last minute things. They asked me to teach in Sunday school rather than preach because someone on their search committee said, "Hey, we have sermons online from him. Let's have him come down and see what more of an informal, interactive teaching scenario, how he does in that kind of a scenario." And so took a past sermon and made it more interactive, put some questions in for there to be discussion. And so I came down here to the office to do that. I got multiple texts. One thing that was really encouraging was multiple Parksiders reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, we're praying for you, love you, know it's going to be great, but praying for you today." One of them was Pastor Austin, and I know that he often comes and will prepare his Sunday school lesson while here in the morning, while maybe Allison is, preparing with the band. But I asked him, I was like, "Hey, are you here?" And he said, "Yeah." So he came in, and before I went back up to Lebanon, he came in, we prayed together. That was just a really encouraging time.
Yeah.
I was feeling nervous. I was feeling, oh man, I need to, and I don't know why, but I think the enemy just whispers and says and deceives you and thinks, yeah, you need to impress people.
Yeah.
And he came in and just said, "Casey, just be yourself. Just take your personality up there, and you're going to be great." And so it was really encouraging to be pastored by Pastor Austin on Sunday morning before going up there. And so received a text from Justin, from John, and it was just Pastor Steve, from so many. I'm so thankful for the prayer that went into that morning. I went up there and was with them for Sunday school, met a few people before Sunday school. And then afterwards, talked with some from Westbridge that had started going there and were going there to really support the revitalization effort up there. And then, during the service, it was neat to be with everyone, and they also do communion a little bit differently, and it was neat to see their observance of that ordinance in a unique way. There's no one right way. It does matter. There are principles that you must keep, and you must, make sure you hold a high value on. And I think for us here at Parkside, especially that corporateness of it, they also had that up there, and it was really rich to be able to take communion with each other. And then afterwards, after the morning service, we were able to hang out. They had a fellowship meal, kind of like our church meals. And we went over to the gym and got some good ham and green beans and potatoes. And anyway, it was just a wonderful time of just sitting around, talking with people, finding out names, and just finding out stories and, answering questions, finding out about the hard times that, a lot of those people who have been through the last few years have some scars, and some of them, they're not scars yet. They're still wounds that need tending. And so the two pastors, Bo and Fred, have done a wonderful job shepherding and pastoring those people as lay pastors, but they recognize, we need to hire a staff pastor. And so it's just been a wonderful time together with them. After we all got done eating in the fellowship meal, there was an opportunity for me to answer questions that they had for me. Just, some questions like, what is the role of a pastor? And what is your leadership style? What does your walk with Jesus look like right now? And other questions like that. It was really good. There was a lot of just really attentive people. One thing that I was really encouraged by, especially during the Sunday school, but also in conversations, was that I noticed that there was some spiritual maturity in some of the people who have gone through the really challenging seasons. Not only that, though, there was also some new believers that have become believers in the last couple of years. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on Sunday, but it was really encouraging to see one new believer, a mom who got connected with another homeschool mom, and you got together for kids' play dates, and the kid was drawn to go to church, and so invited the mom, and she started coming. She encountered Jesus and began following him, and then her husband, they began praying for him, and I'll tell more of the story, but he ended up, he is a Christian now and is following Jesus ever since I think this past Easter. And so it was fun to be able, I mean, so there's new Christians as well. There's some good maturity. There's some longevity. There's a couple, a few folks who have been there for 40 plus years. And that's really cool to see, because coming here to Parkside, that was one of the amazing things, was seeing so many who had been here for 40, 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. It's awesome to see those pillars, but to even more so see a commitment to we want to see a gospel preaching, Bible preaching church here in Lebanon that not only seeks to meet and worship God on Sunday mornings, but seeks to go out and love others in the community. There's this one widow who goes to, I mean, almost every Lebanon sports event, and I mean, everybody knows her. And she goes. I was even talking with Peg McKinnon, and she knows. You know, she has grandchildren who are in Lebanon and do sports up there. She knows this lady because she shows up at the events that her grandchildren go to and are participants in. And so, I mean, I guess this lady is invited to so many open houses just because she is actively a fan. She gives of her time to be fans of the kids, to care about them. But then the parents see that and say, "Oh, we love your encouragement of our kids." And so, anyway, it was great to talk with her, and so many more. But yeah, it was a wonderful morning, getting to know everyone a little bit better up there.
Yeah, that's really cool.
John, you were here at Parkside.
Yeah.
And it was a different kind of Sunday here a little bit as well. Why don't you share with us what happened here?
Yeah. So Pastor Harrison Beckman was here. He is doing his pastor or church planting residency up at Harvest right now, planning on planting the Speedway church. And it was just so encouraging to hear his heart. Justin, I think you talked with him and were like, hey, just preach on something that you've preached on before and that you have a heart for. So he preached from Revelation 21. The Lord is making all things new, and shared his heart for church planting and encouraged us to be having the same mindset of going out, being sent into the world, and what that would look like even for some of our members to be sent out for church planting or mission work or whatever it is. It was convicting for me. It was encouraging, and it got me excited for this Speedway church plant with Harrison being the lead pastor there. I lived in Speedway for 4 or 5 years, and when you talk with people and they say, yeah, there's like no gospel preaching evangelical churches in the Speedway area, that may seem like a hyperbole, like a little bit, yeah, there's probably something. There's really not. I think there's more local coffee shops than I can count, than I can even count good churches that I would recommend someone to go to in Speedway. So not only is there's a need, but I mean, it's a desperate need. And it's so cool to hear Harrison and his wife Janae's heart for Speedway. They just moved there about a month or two ago, and have already gotten numerous of their names of their neighbors and inviting them into their house. It's just such an encouragement to see that the gospel moving into Speedway, which really in the past has been a very dark place.
Yeah, I think it was about 8-9 years ago. There was the last church plant attempted in Speedway, and it failed. The doors are closed, and so we are glad for continued efforts to see the gospel break into that town. For Pastor Harrison and Janae and their leadership, and glad to partner with them and see what may happen. Yeah.
It was really encouraging, and really encouraging to hear just how the Fields is doing and the work that the Lord is doing through them in Westfield, what Trailview and what Westbridge has been doing, and just revitalizing that. And it's so good to hear that was an encouraging time. I know that we talked and it was scary to go up there, and we talked about it in our service. It was really bittersweet to like know you're there and be excited, knowing that we may lose you eventually. But overall, like our goal is seeing the gospel being spread, taking the gospel to the ends of the earth, and that happening in our communities right now, and even to the world with Pastor Steve and the Cooks and Ken in India right now. It's really encouraging. Parks, I hope you were encouraged by that. Thank you guys, and thank you all for joining us for the follow-up. We will be back next Wednesday. See ya.